Namaskar. Our soul longs for expansion. Consciousness has infinite potential. So, due to this reason, there is a thirst for limitlessness, and until we achieve limitlessness, there is two ways to be happy. One is to achieve limitlessness, and another is to start moving on the path of achievement of limitlessness. Limitless thirst of consciousness for expansion. So on this path of expansion, two approaches are very, very important. We can call them positive approach and negative approach. Positive approach, let's start with the positive. And it is important to develop both. You develop positive approach, and then you develop negative approach, and then you bring them into balance. With that, you can be perfectly happy. So let's start with the positive approach. What is positive approach? It's the tantric idea of out of bliss we have come. In bliss we do exist. And in the sacred bliss we are going to return. We are going to merge with the sacred bliss. So life is blissful. Life is divine. Seeing the world as divine, as a divinity, this is the essence of positive approach. We cultivate that positive approach through meditation, through kirtana, like Bhavanam Kevalam is the embodiment of the positive approach, that everything is consciousness, everything is love divine, everything is perfect bliss. So as you meditate, you try to find out how the divinity is in this tree, how the divinity is in the sky, in myself. When you talk to a person, you look into his eyes and then you meditate. You try to perceive that God is looking back at you through his eyes. So you're seeing something beautiful, something divine in another person. You are listening to the person as if God is speaking. You are looking at the person as if you are looking at God. That is positive approach. In that positive approach, your eyes, they become a constructive force. Whatever you cast your glance upon, it's just like you look here, the grass will grow. You interact with a person and he awakens. His consciousness awakens. When you listen to the person very attentively, when you are listening to the person as if God is speaking, then his brain gets activated. And then he himself will start to speak such an ideas that he couldn't conceive of before talking to you. That's the value of satsang as a spiritual company. So we should be like this. We should be stimulating the greatness in each other. And then whatever happens, the person may be simple, may have some defects, but you look at him as divinity. You perceive that man, that woman as a divinity, as a deity. And that faith, that vision actually forms the person. The person grows into that divinity. You believe into someone, and that belief, that faith in someone will mold that person to become beautiful, to become perfect. Also, in personal life, in collective life, we must dream. We must have, I have a dream. How do I want to live? What should be my legacy? Just imagine, okay, I want to live. I want to have, for example, like simple things. I want to, after 10 years or after 15 years, after 5 years, I want to have such a life that I have enough time for my spiritual practices. I should have enough money not to worry about material things. And I should live. And in my environment, in my company, there has to be only sentient people, only inspired people. in the minds of whom the great ideas are boiling. The people who are thinking how to move the human society from darkness to light. What should be our society? What should be our planet? What kind of cities we want to live? The cities should be built in the ecosystem of the planet, not disturbing the ecosystem. There should be balance and equilibrium between human beings, animals, and plants and trees, and the stones and the flora and fauna. So that kind of world. But that world begins from the image, from the dream. The brain is a peculiar thing. If you conceptualize something as a goal, the brain starts to find the ways how to achieve that goal. It's interesting, it's a beautiful, powerful instrument, powerful tool. But you need to give that goal to your brain. Before that, brain is not functioning. But once the goal is there, then the brain will start finding different puzzles, different pieces to piece all those things together to achieve your objectives. So it is very important to visualize, to dream, to understand where we are moving. The goals are important. So that is one. Positive approach to life. And then meditate. Without meditation, you cannot have truly positive approach to life. Meditate on divinity within yourself. Meditate on divinity in others. Contemplate means think. Think deeply. Try to find how is it that this tree is divine. Contemplate it. Contemplate inside yourself. How is it I am divine? Remove the body, remove the mind. Go touch with your divine essence. That is the part of positive approach. And then there is a negative approach. Negative approach is, in essence, is the same. It leads to the same goal, but it takes a different route. Like Lord Buddha, he propounded 4 noble truths. It's incredible. Actually, such a discovery he made. Very, very interesting discovery. And that is that type of negative approach that goes, like you see, the positive approach. From bliss we came, in bliss we exist, in the sacred bliss we will return. And there is another approach. There is suffering. There is suffering. Bliss, suffering. Looks like very opposite. But the goal, the result is the same. There is suffering. There is a cessation of suffering. There is a cause of suffering. And there is a way to end suffering. So these are the 4 noble truths. And Buddha urged his disciples to meditate upon those truths. I must realize my suffering. The problem is that most of the time people do not realize suffering as suffering. There is a force of avidya, means the force of ignorance, acting upon the mind. And due to that force of ignorance, we accept suffering as happiness. Suffering is happiness. For example, alcohol is a pure essence of suffering. But people spend money and they buy alcohol in the shop. Sometimes they buy $100, so many good things they could buy, but they buy a bottle of suffering. Because of the confusion in the mind, because of the force of ignorance, I cannot recognize something as suffering. If I would recognize something as a suffering, I would immediately reject it, because our nature is to seek happiness and to avoid suffering. But as the suffering is wrapped in the coverage of happiness, we superficially perceive it as happiness. In my mind, I may read, of course, maybe alcohol is bad, I know it intellectually. I know smoking is bad, I know it intellectually. But in my mind, deep in my mind, I believe that actually smoking is good. It gives me happiness, it gives me pleasure. Because somehow that suffering is wrapped in the coverage of happiness. aklista. It is, in the beginning, it is happy, but in the result it is painful. So one big work, I think this is actually hardest, is finding out, locating the suffering. What am I suffering from? Like if you ask average persons, how are you? You say, oh fine, I'm okay. But actually there is no inspiration. Nothing to complain about, but also there is no happiness, there is no joy, there is no inspiration. And the person is not aware what I am suffering from. But the suffering is there. Heaviness is there, suffering is there. But awareness of the suffering is not there. And because of awareness is not there, the person cannot get rid of the suffering. So very important to realize what am I suffering from? Big work. And then when you start to search for suffering, then you start to accept, for example, criticism in an easier way. When someone is criticizing me, I feel like he is attacking me, and I want to defend. I want to defend my ego. But if my purpose is to find suffering, then I understand, oh, this person is helping me actually. So he will tell, I will accept that criticism, I will think about it. And if it is true, I will be grateful to that person because he helped me to identify my suffering. For that kind of attitude, you have to be very mature spiritually. I understand that if somebody is criticizing me, then he helps me to identify my suffering and to get rid of it. And the rest of my life I can live suffering free. In the same way, in our organizations, in our business, in our societies, we can start looking for suffering. We can give $1,000 bonus to those people who are highlighting the weak portions of organization. Or those people who are pointing out inefficient things, pointing out that prevents the organization from growing, developing, that what prevents the business from growing and developing. So this approach is also applicable not only in personal life, but also in organizational life, in business life, in social life. Identifying suffering, then next, meditating on the cause of suffering. Why? Why I'm clinging to this bad habit? Why? What I'm missing? What am I missing? Why this has become so important to me? Then you find out, oh, this emptiness is there. And then next stage, what is the way to end the suffering? What I have to do to end the suffering? And then you develop 2-3 theories, and then you try those theories, and one of them will be working, and then you end the suffering. And then the final truth is that there is a cessation of suffering. It is possible to live beautiful life. It is possible to live life without suffering. Imagine it, just like in a positive approach. What be the world of our dreams? The world without suffering. So these two approaches, they have to be combined, because the negative approach in itself can lead to the pessimism. And also you have to practice it in a smart way. When you're practicing negative approach, like you're meditating on the suffering, what is the danger? The danger is that the mind trained to find defects will be seeing defects everywhere. That's how our brain is. You gave the brain the task to search for suffering, to search for defects, then suddenly the entire world is suffering, actually. And then you become unhappy. So one important thing in this approach, that you have to focus in the area of your influence. If you are noticing suffering somewhere where you have no influence, then it just makes you depressed. You know, we can think about the wars and the world suffering, and then I don't have much means to influence that. I cannot change that. So that will make me depressed. Instead of that, I should focus on the area where I do exercise some sort of influence. And then I find suffering in my area, and I have the means to change it, and I will change it, and then by removing suffering, I will really feel so much inspired. So this, it has to be, you have to focus in the area of your influence, not outside that area, when you are searching for the suffering. And then next one is that there has to be balance between two approaches. The positive approach and negative approach you can combine. From bliss we have come, in bliss we exist, in the sacred bliss we will return. And then there is suffering, there is a cause of suffering, there is a way to end the suffering, and there is a cessation of suffering. Combine these two. Meditate, and then in your material day-to-day life find, and then in your personality find the defects, correct the defects. That is going to enable very fast progress of our soul. So let me know what you think. Maybe you can add something, what I've missed in this small discourse. But I think this is going to be very, very useful in our lives. Thank you. Namaskar.